In October 2017, I gave birth to my son by emergency cesarean after being in labour for 28 hours. After a few days, I went home and my body started to change in unimaginable ways. I was in so much pain all the time, having shooting pains in my abdominal area. I was fatigued. I didn't know what was going on, and I just turned 20. I didn't have a clue about people having cancer at this age. I went to my GP and I demanded a speculum examination from a gynaecologist to find out what was going on. When I did get to see a gynaecologist, they did a speculum examination and he found a large tumour. I then went for a second speculum examination where the doctor found that the first doctor was right, and he brought me for a biopsy. I then went on to be diagnosed with stage 2B2 cervical carcinoma. I didn't know what to do. I had to start chemo straight away. I couldn't do anything. My life just stopped there, dead. It just stopped dead. I was a single parent. My mum had to take care of my son because I was so unwell. I just couldn't even walk. I couldn't wash myself. I couldn't drink or eat. I completed my radical chemotherapy and brachytherapy, and 3 months later I was in remission. I thought my life was going back to normal. I got on with my life, continued what I wanted to do with my son and my family, until I started feeling unwell again. And I went back to the hospital with my mum and I said, something's wrong. I'm not feeling good. They took me for an emergency scan and they found that the cancer had returned in the same place. I was told that I was going to die. There was no cure. I couldn't cope with any more treatment. I had had the most treatment that you could have for that cancer. The day that I was going home from the hospital, my mother had a massive heart attack and was in a coma. She died 10 days later. I was then told after my mother died that there was nothing left that they could do for me. I was sent home and I was told that I needed to prepare what I was going to do with my child, because that was to be. My son was 2 at this point. The only thing left to try was, of course, cannabis oil, which I took morning, day, night, out for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I was in hospital, I was out of hospital, I was in hospital. I was then told, after all of my fighting and all of my struggle, that my cancer was dormant. It stopped growing. I was left with life-changing disabilities. I have kidney failure in both kidneys. I have stents to hold my kidneys up. I have chronic lymphedema and lymphoid syndrome. I cannot have any more children. The worst part about this story is that when I was in labour in 2017, my cancer was detected by a midwife. They saw the growth. Consultant confirmed it, and it was written in my files. But I was not given a 6-week checkup after giving birth to my son, and I was not told that it was there. I went to a solicitor and I told them what had happened, and we opened up a case against the NHS where the NHS accepted liability. They took liability for what they did. And the excuse for why they didn't send me any letters for a 6-week checkup is because they didn't think fixed address, which was completely absurd. because I have this accent and my mother came from the travelling community, I was so badly discriminated against that I thought that it wasn't worth spending 5 pence on a post stamp to send me a letter to say that I had a growth on my cervix at 20 years old. I saw a health visitor. I think when your baby's born, they come nearly every day. So there was no reason for anyone to believe. Obviously, I've got a GP, obviously there's no reason for anyone to believe that I haven't got a fixed address. They also said that if the cancer was detected 6 months earlier, it wouldn't have made my outcome. But my son was born on the 7th of October and I wasn't diagnosed until the 16th of May. So not only did they discriminate against me, but they also told lies to clear their backs. When I asked for a formal apology from the wife and the consultant that let me go in such a state, I was refused that and I was let speak to a secretary instead, where they said they would not be reprimanded for what they had done to me. They offered me £5,000 and when I refused, I was threatened to be sued for £30,000 if I didn't accept. So I've been blackmailed, I've been told lies on, and I've been racially discriminated against, all for having cancer. My life has changed drastically. My support network, my mother, I have post-traumatic stress disorder and depression and anxiety. More than anything, the worst part is that I missed every part of my baby's life. I missed his first days at play school. I was deemed incurable. I am deemed incurable. My cancer is dormant. But if I had been diagnosed 7 months earlier, I wouldn't have had any of these. Now, a fool can tell you that the earlier you diagnose cancer, the less chance you have of it returning again. My mortality rate is 75% in the next 5 years. The national age for a smear test in this country, in the United Kingdom, is 25. I was diagnosed at 20. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone.